God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the Preble Town Board meeting of July 13th, 2020. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes of our regular meeting on June 8th?
Motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. At this time, I'd like to introduce John Lamondes, who called me this morning and wanted to come in and say a few words. John?
Thank you. I hope this doesn't offend anyone. If I take this off, I'll put it back on if you want me to. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and introduce myself. As you know, I'm running for the 126th Assembly seat, and for those of you who may have supported me in the primary, I thank you. I look forward to the general election and your support as well. And most importantly, I would prefer to actually listen to any issues that you'd like to tell me that are most important to you. That's really the purpose of my being here. If you'd like to do that, that's great with me. And otherwise, I'll just answer questions for a few minutes until you kick me out.
Well, I guess maybe we could just start off and just ask, what was your relationship with Gary Finch, who you're running to replace, right? If you can just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So my relationship with Gary is good. And ironically, he was one of the first people that I met. For those of you that don't know, I was born and raised in Liverpool. Went to college, then went into the Army for 27 years, came back, did not settle in Liverpool, settled in Lafayette, where we own and operate our family farm. And I'm a New York Farm Bureau member. And at our first meeting, Dave Knapp, Onondaga County legislator, introduced me to Gary Finch, and who happened to be at that meeting. It was a dinner, and I didn't know him prior to that. He said, "Would you mind if I eat dinner with you and your wife?" I said, "Sure, that's wonderful." And so we got to know him that night. That was within the first. I don't remember exactly how many months we had been back here when that took place, but that's where we met, and I've voted for him since, based on the way that he treated us and was genuinely interested in what we were doing, why we were doing it, where I was from, why I decided to buy a farm in Lafayette. And so it's our relationship is good. He's behind me 100%. For those of you that may not know, he has endorsed me. He did so for the primary, and I am working with him and in contact with his staff virtually daily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Well, here in Preble, we don't have a lot of pressing issues. It's a very small town of 1,400 people.
Yeah.
But there is one project that we're looking to do. I guess is Jeff here? Could you tell him about the culvert that we're looking to do?
Oh, it's a large culvert that we're looking for. How familiar with Bridge New York? The chips. You've probably heard of the chips.
Yep.
And the spin-off of that is the Bridge New York and Pave New York funding streams. And I know all bets are off now with everything going on, but
Right.
I'm just looking for support. If there's one thing that seems equitable in New York State, it seems to be the CHIPS formula. Cities get money, towns get money, counties, it's all different because of the amount of miles traveled on different roads.
Right.
But everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And very few people don't use a road in one form or another. So it's a big push of ours to, at the state level to try to keep that equitable funding, coming back to a small town. To us, that's $60,000-$70,000 a year that would have to come from the local taxpayer if we didn't have that.
What's the diameter of the culvert?
Oh, it's 2 6-footers.
Yeah.
And it's put in there. It's actually an old boiler one side, and then the other side was added later. So you're talking something from probably the 40s, and the other side was put in the late 60s.
So there's a washout risk without that.
We're on borrowed time.
Yeah.
So but just anything like that you can, I believe in the equity,
Right.
as far as your, you know, we got some money from Jim Seward for our highway garage.
Yep.
So it's just little things back at the small town level. It helps us out a lot. This culvert project is probably a $600,000 project.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a burden on this town if we don't come up with some supplemental funding of some kind.
Right. I would never be opposed to something like that. I recognize the need for it. For those of you that may not know, I'm on the County Soil and Water Conservation District Board, and we do this stuff all the time. All kinds of projects like this. This is a little on the bigger side, but nonetheless, we still are involved with that, and I have been doing that for 4 years. So it's not something new to me. It's not something also that I have seen many times just in our own board meetings when we're trying to rack and stack, where are we going to put our money? What are we going to put it against? This farm needs this town needs that. So I am familiar with that process. I've worked it a lot, and would, without question, look to get whatever we could for that. I make you no promises.
I
In this
understand.
environment, it's I'm not elected yet, number one.
Mhm.
Number two, this is an unforeseen time. Number three, with our state deficit, we have to do something different than what we've been doing.
Absolutely.
If we don't, we're never going to solve this problem. So,
But thank you.
yep, you're welcome.
Other than that, unless the board has any concerns about pressing issues with the town,
Jeff
Yeah.
hit it on the head and keep that CHIPS fund working
Yep.
the way it is now. It's fair and equal for everybody.
Are there people? I mean, are you guys bringing that up because there are people currently in office that are trying to erode it?
Maybe change it.
I'll be honest.
Or
it's generally
unequitably distribute
bipartisan.
it?
It's generally bipartisan because,
Yeah.
like, that formula of New York City gets like, $40 million.
Right.
I mean, it's every street in New York City is
Yeah.
accounted for, so it's not red and blue. It's a bipartisan. It's something everybody can jump on, but it's also it's a fully, for good or bad, it's a fully bonded program.
Yeah.
So it's. You cut it, even if you cut it 100% right now, you're only going to save, 10 cents on the dollar.
Right.
Not that that's good, and you and I could do our finances that way, but
Right.
we're in this boat now.
Yeah.
So, but,
Yeah.
and that's one of the few things, infrastructure, building, hard projects that are bondable. I mean, other things that don't bond well as far as many other things in the budget. So everybody looks, and sadly, I just read a short article today on the federal Highway Transportation Act, and that's on the edge of insolvency.
Yeah.
And we all need roads, bridges, and all that, but but there's common ground there. It's the biggest thing.
I spoke, just to give you guys I'm sure everybody knows this, but let me throw it out anyway. That yesterday I spoke to people from the town of Aurora. They need, their filtration system needs to be replaced. And so they're looking for a water filtration system, help with it. There's another town in Cuba County who has a similar issue, except it's a rock slide. And so safety issue, God, can I go down this road today? Or am I gonna get a rock on the top of my car? And so there are so many of these all over the place. I think they have to be, if it was my checkbook for a day, I would simply prioritize them based on need and safety. Can we do yours? Do we have to do it first, or can we do it third based on whatever money that we have? That's how I've done everything in my career so far. It's a rational approach.
Just to put the slide need into it.
Yeah.
Mike, I don't know how many 1,000-gallon tanks you're hauling now, but instead of going out Curry Road, which is up here by the Rapido, right up by the exit, a lot of farm vehicles be coming right down Main Street right here if we had to close that road.
You're talking about with the, with I-81.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that use that as a shortcut. It's
Yeah.
Probably one of our 2 most traveled roads in town.
Yeah.
So,
We recognize the challenges that are coming in the coming months, the economic challenges that are coming in the coming months.
Right.
When things start settling out, when the chickens come home to roost through all of this, it's going to be very challenging. And,
It is.
the economic issues are going to be tough. So, I don't think any of us know exactly how this is all going to play out, but it will be challenging. And so, we're doing the best that we can here in Preble, and we wish you the best in your race for assemblyman. That you had a lot of support in this area.
I'm aware.
So we wish you the best, and thanks for calling and coming in,
You're welcome.
and we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you all, and I hope I didn't disrupt your meeting too much. I hope it's okay, and I'm going to do this all over the district in every town that will have me. So it's my way of trying to get to know you guys and meet you before the election. So
Thanks, John.
More than
You're
welcome
welcome.
to stop back again prior to the election, and see if there's any other concerns or whatever.
all right, thank you all. Yep. See you.
Okay. Jane?
Crowd control, there was a stray rat, whatever, picked up and moved on the line, and 105 miles traveled through the town. Justice report, $2,008 for June fines.
Thanks, Jane. Jeff, highway report?
yeah, I can't complain about the weather, so we've been getting quite a bit done. I did get the CHIPS letter. They were just discussing part of it, June 16th. Normally we have it by the middle of April. So, and in bold letters, they may, heavy may, cut it 20%. So we'll see. We got a few projects going on. Preble Hill, we got the trees cut up there, the stumps are dug out. We're in the process of doing the regrading now and getting that ready. We're probably, a little over a third of the way, but not half, but a third of the way through that project. Then we're gonna move over onto East Hill and dig out about 400 yards of that road that's real soft and build that back up. I had Dave Orr, who's the head of the Cornell Local Roads Program, come over from Ithaca. He was here July 2nd. And the old highway garage, there's an intersection issue there. Namely, there isn't an intersection. It just is kind of a free-for-all. So he helped me lay out and gave me some ideas how to change that and make it safe and so people know where they're going. So we're going to start laying that out here in the next, probably first part of August. I had Auctions International. Took a bunch of the old things we don't use from the old shop, put it on a municipal auction site. That netted us a little over $900. Town cleanup. Just got these figures a couple days ago, 3 days ago. 20 looked like a lot, but it's 26.74 tons was taken to the landfill. The county gives us amnesty on 30 tons, so we actually have a couple $100 credit. Contentos, the difference between the trash that they hauled to the landfill for us and the value of the scrap that they took in was $247.45. So we're pretty good shape there. It's a net, just about zero. Any other questions I could answer for anybody?
Now, your intersection you're talking, would that be something started this fall, or just the idea and planning starting now?
No, it'd be something we're probably gonna gravel in, get the contours done in gravel, see how traffic treats it, delineate it. And as long as it's one of those things you can engineer something all you want, but until you watch how people use it. And then if it's proved that, through observation and
That's
and
what-
watching
that
where
will
tire
work.
tracks are and things. Then we eventually we pave that in.
Jeff, the entering Preble signs, are they gonna be exactly the same as the ones that are up there now?
They'll be legible. But a lot of them you can't even read now, and at the very bottom, it'll have our website at the very bottom.
Okay,
But the building permit required, the zoning and for, all that's, you know, verbatim the same, but I just put that in at the bottom.
good. Good. Any other questions for Jeff? Okay, thanks, Jeff. Recreation, no one here for recreation. County legislator, the legislator is not here. Jane?
The June report for zoning and code, 5 building permits issued, 58 miles traveled, 17 building inspections, 37 hours work, 2 fire inspections, 7 complaint follow-ups, 19 telephone inquiries. Planning board meeting is July 23rd, and ZBA meeting is August 6th.
Thanks, Jane. Our historian is not here today. Jane?
We collected $351 in fees, dispersed $341 to the town of Preble, and $10 to New York State Bacon Market. The tax collector, all the taxes have been returned to the county. The total tax warrant was $1,969,286.69. And 37 parcels returned to the treasurer, $78,306.32.
Thanks, Jane. Unfinished business, we have 1692 Steger Road property. The junk that was there is probably 95% cleaned up, but there is still a small pile of broken up sheetrock that is not cleaned up. So Rick, I'm just letting you know that there's still a small pile of crumbling sheetrock there. So if you could call your guy and let him know that, we would appreciate it. And then new business, Rick, we'd like you to talk about what's going on in your world and talk about your new fee schedule too. If you could stand up, that would be good.
I figured we would do a update on the fee schedule since this was 2010. Bring it up to date to, rather than doing it in dollars, doing it square foot, for new construction. So I figured out with square footage, which is a lot better, more accurate. Agricultural buildings, that was a question for here. Most of the areas are charging $25 because with the new rules and regulations, if you're building, no matter what it is, the agricultural district doesn't have to build the road, but they need a certificate of completion. They need the building, so you could either eliminate that $25 fee and go back to zero. Everything else is like we don't want to charge anything for disability ramps, and now we need this appliance inspections such as fireplaces, heaters, air conditioners. So, and the solar panel, those small solar scale is for residential, but the big green large, there's a lot of work to those things, and junkyard permit, we don't have no junkyards around. And life safety inspection, we used to charge for life safety inspection. I thought it'd be nicer to not charge for life safety inspection. Operating permits, public assemblies, no charge. We have a cell tower, so they're gonna do some work on that. Sign permit, $10. Pretty much what it is that trying to get you guys to say, okay.
What's a fixed appliance?
Fixed appliances is like if somebody's gonna transfer from oil heat to propane or gas, or put in a new furnace, or electric, put air conditioning in the house, solar panels on the roof.
So if you have to change boilers, or if you're just going from oil to gas, there's a charge.
If you're changing a fuel source, yeah. But if you're gonna update like propane to propane,
Rick, can you talk to us about the green energy production, large scale, $25,000 per megawatt? Could you talk to us about that, how you came up with that figure?
well, what happens into a lot of towns is they end up with these full solar fields. They're industrial, commercial solar fields. And then what happens, they go, the people that come in, they try to go for a pilot and try to get a tax break. And then the actual town doesn't get anything by the time that all happens, once it's all broken down. It was just something similar to what happened when Barton Holmes was here. They got that break, and then we were stuck with that empty facility until Suitcoat came and took that facility. Same thing happened with that Sunoco gas station where Maravino is now. We had those issues going on to where these people, once they get that tax break and they come to the end of their period of their break, then they pack their suitcase and they leave, and then we're stuck with the. So somewhere along the line, we need to recover some kind of money to where these solar panels, these solar fields, in 20 years, I know we're gonna ask for a bond if this ever happens to clean it up. But we get some kind of reserve somewhere to try to help take that thing back apart.
Now, at a certain size solar farm, it's really out of our control, and the state takes over, right?
No, if it comes into a local municipal area, the town, we inspect them as code officials.
Okay. But I'm saying if the state is in control of a project, this $25,000 fee they may say, that.
If the state, I don't know, they're usually developers that do this, put them solar fields in.
Now, overall, would you say that your fees, that you came up with this price list, would you say that this is competitive with what other towns are doing?
Yep, the other towns that I work in are, and I know the other towns I have other code officials affiliated with it, that they were very happy with what we're presenting, with the new codes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Rick?
The only question there was always in the other towns was the agricultural district. They can build without the code. So some of them are saying, okay, $25 is good because we got to give them a certificate of completion. And some of the towns don't like it. Doesn't matter, it's only $25.
Okay. Any questions for Rick? Okay. Anything else you want to say, Rick?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot for coming.
And Brian Butler is here.
Okay. Hi, Brian.
Good evening. Something you can go down there.
Yeah, this, we can either vote on tonight or we can read it over the month and vote on it next time. Does that feel good? Does that sound like good? Vote on it next month? Okay.
I guess looking at the old fee schedule too, Rick, there's some things like that aren't on there, like the hawk permit. Are they included under something else now, or?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, on the old fee schedule, there's a lot of things on the old fee schedule that aren't on the new one.
Yeah, it kind of the old fee schedule kind of broke it down individually for every little tiny item.
Okay,
But on the old fee schedule, there's a lot of things that are going on that we don't have no fees for. And we've been trying to address what wasn't going on. So the old fee schedule just needs to be updated.
So what was the one you saw?
subdivision, there's no subdivision fees on the new one. Aquifer permit is different.
Once you go through it, you'll see that there's a lot that's more on the newer fee schedule than the older one.
All right, well, we can look through it, highlight one, do we get questions to it?
Well, there might be some things missing. That's what you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
there's things that are on the old fee schedule that
Right.
are not on the new fee schedule.
Right. Do you want to take?
If you want me to work on it some more, I'll be more than glad to work on it.
Yeah, if you could include the things that were on there before,
Yeah.
and just add them to the new list.
Let me tweak it, get you another copy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay, monies received, we received $1,771.89 from Northeast Transformers, and we received $741.92 for rent from USPS. At this time, I'd like to open up our meeting for public comment and questions. Don?
Well, I was wondering if you wanted to have a report from our interim.
Right. Okay, yes. Brian, we'd like to hear from you if you want to.
Well, if you mind, I'm gonna take this down momentarily so I can breathe and talk.
Sure.
As the board knows that a couple weeks ago in that, I was brought in during some of Mr. Fritz's recuperation period and did an investigation on a special projects basis for the town. I determined after fairly intense investigation that in fact documents prepared by a licensed design professional, be it an engineer or an architect registered in the state of New York, was required as Mr. Fritz had initially requested. I had numerous conversations via email as well as one site visit with the client and the applicant. And after a period of time, basically that communication broke off. So I concluded my investigation report and then basically pretty much waited for this meeting to make a presentation and to answer any questions that may come up. Throughout the course of my investigation, I have tried to be open and transparent about the information that was gleaned from my research, and at the same time, open up the opportunity to continue to work with the applicant whenever possible. That has not really become forthcoming to date, so we stand in a situation where I once again reiterate the fact that documents by a licensed design professional will be required for the applicant to go forward with their project.
Okay. All the board members who have email received that communication. And Brian, I felt, was very detailed and in-depth in his description of what he was doing and what his thoughts were and that type of thing. I think Brian was pretty thorough in his work. And both Rick Fritz and Brian Butner came up with the same conclusion in the end, that the applicant needed a comprehensive drawing from a design professional to communicate what exactly is going on with this project. Does any of the board members have questions for Brian?
No, I think he was very detailed in his explanation.
No, I was pleased with his work.
Could I interject, please? I'm Sam Beers, I'm representing
Yes.
Division here.
Mhm.
I read the reports also, the attorney for the town provided them to me. Question I have is this: it's not an unusual project with a pool at the town.
It seems like all the dimensions are there. She's met all the criteria. She may not have handled it in a professional way, but I think she's a very smart lady. She knows what she's doing. She knows what the law is. And I'd like to know why you think you have to spend an extra $10,000 to get somebody to sign a pair. Some form. It's crazy. An architectural to come in is going to charge her 10 grand. Why would you pay 10 grand to put in a pool with a beautiful canopy over it? That's all she's trying to do. It's for her own health. She's got a doctor's statement that she needs hydrotherapy. It doesn't make sense to me why anybody would object to this. It's not going to make, what difference does it make if there's a signed statement by an architect that's going to come in and make one move and charge her 10 grand for that? That's the best they could come up with so far. Why would you want to do that to a person who's been here? She's a life resident. She grew up in this town. She knows everybody here. I don't know anybody here at all, but it seems to me, when I first looked at it, I go, this is crazy. Why are they picking on her? It does look like they're picking on her. And why would you want to do that to a person who's a nice taxpayer? She's an RN. She's a professional person. Nurse practitioner. She's even better than that. She's an educated lady, and it doesn't make sense to me. Why would you I understand why there's probably a conflict, personality conflict. I understand that. But the second guy came in and came up with a worse conclusion than the first one, basically. Why would you want to have a person come in who wants to put a pool in her yard? Pool's already paid for, sitting in storage right now, $500 a month to be paid. She's paying right now. To put a greenhouse over, that's all she's looking at. Nothing else, nothing less. It's not going to interfere with anybody's enjoyment of their property. That's all you're looking. Zoning is only to help the people maintain the community. How are you going to destroy a community when you're putting a beautiful pool, a lap pool basically, with a greenhouse over? What's that going to do? Why would you want to come in and spend money that's unnecessary? She didn't have a lot of money. She and her husband lived together in a nice house, but not a great house. She wants to do it for her own health. That's the question I have. Why would you want to express? My friend is an architect. He told me to come in. It costs him 10 grand to even look at the prints. Why would you want to spend that kind of money? The people that are doing the pool are very reputable. People who are doing the greenhouse, the greenhouse over the pool, are very reputable, nationally concerned people. So why would you want to cause any more problems? What are you going to get if you get somebody come and stamp the plan? What are you going to get? Same thing. It's going to go in. If you get a stamp on the plan, are you going to approve it? That's the only question we have right now. Are you going to approve this thing if you get a stamp on the plan? If you're not, then why are we here? It's crazy. You guys are just picking this poor lady apart. And she's not a bad lady. I know her. She's a friend of my sister-in-law's. Known each other for a long time. And there's no reason to do that. I go to town meetings all the time. Never been here before. But I go to town meetings all the time. Most of the time I say, just give us a darn sketch. You draw your sketch. I just put a house, put $100,000 thing on my house. They drew them a sketch and that was it. Why do you have to do that? I don't understand that. I really don't. Why would you come up with that conclusion to stamp by an architect when you don't have to do that? It's not going to change anything. Nothing's going to change. Dimensions are there. The type of structures there. Everything else is there. Why would you want to put her through that? I don't get it. I really don't. So that's what I'd like to tell you guys now, that I think you guys are out of bounds. I think you need to get this approved. She's had the pool for a year now, sitting in storage. It costs her $500 a month. Why would you want to do that? Now's the time to be in it. She should have done therapy. She has to do therapy 3 times a week. Hydrotherapy a day, I'm sorry. Because she's had all this surgery, her knees and everything are messed up. It's just a dumb thing to do to her. I don't understand why you're doing it. And that's not a legal opinion at all. That's my opinion. But I think a legal opinion, you guys are off bounds on this thing. I really do. So that's what I'd like to see you do, is approve it. You don't need anybody else. I mean, Rick knows what he's doing. He's seen it. The project's there. Why do you need anything more? The dimensions are okay. There's nothing going to destroy any part of the neighborhood. So why would you want to do this to her? Charge her an extra 10 grand. So you want to contribute to it? Fine. I'm not going to contribute to it. You guys shouldn't either. So that's what we're looking at. Want to get this thing approved so she can get it in the ground and start doing her own home therapy. That's what I'd like to tell you right now. It's just beyond my imagination why anybody would legally take that stand.
Mr. Beardsley, her character and her residency here, a lot of the description that you talked about her has nothing to do with this. She's an applicant, and we're not picking on her either. She came in here just like anybody else comes in here. Mr. Fritz started processing her application just like anybody else, and nobody was picking on her. And both are, both Mr. Fritz and Mr. Butner found out after extensive review that she needs a comprehensive drawing for this project. So that's not the town board saying that, that's our advisors that are
I
saying that,
understand that.
who are experts in this field.
Well.
And we're certainly not picking on her. We would like to see her project go forward. We encourage development in the town of Preble for residents that want to improve their properties. We don't want to hold her back at all.
Well, it's been a year though. It's been a year in this process.
It hasn't been a year.
How long has it been? Almost a year.
No, we had the coronavirus thing going on, we were closed for a while.
7/20, it's been a year exactly, 7/22/19.
Well, I think
That's a
last
year.
year it involved
We didn't get an application until.
July of last year, this time last year.
last year, I think it
July
was,
22nd, 19.
That's a year. She had us
I'm
pool.
thinking that
Let
that,
me ask you this question, not that I want to be a cocky guy or anything, but let me ask you this question. Will you put your name on a certificate of occupancy without engineer drawings?
Absolutely, why not?
You would?
Why not?
Well, then. when
You're
she's
putting
done-
you're not, what's an
when she's
engineering
done,
drawing,
you'll
Mr. Fritz?
sign
Let me
it.
ask you this.
You'll
You're
put
putting a
your name
pool
on
in the ground, that's not a big deal. You're
it. And
putting a darn,
everybody that comes in here gets treated the same way. And when they come in here, they're a lot nicer and polite. We don't need to be abused and told that we don't know what we're doing.
well, it's a personal problem you have then.
That's right.
That's
No,
part of your
it's-
problem
it's
as a
not-
public
it's not a
official.
personal problem.
I'm an attorney, I get abused all the time too, judges abuse us, everybody abuses us. It's
But I
part of
like
being
to
a
do-
public official,
I
you get
like to do,
abused.
I want to do my job. I'm not gonna
I
give
don't care.
anybody anything different than anybody else.
But you're not, you made it, you just sort of ahead of it a year, it's been 7/22/19, it's when it was first applied. It's a year, my book is a year, 8 days short, big deal, what's the difference? So you're nitpicking. So why don't you just approve this thing? What is there, what do you need a pool, you can put a pool in the ground anywhere, is there gonna be a,
A handicap indoor swimming pool, you don't need
it's
to
not
have
indoor
one.
yet. She's
Really?
putting a greenhouse over the top of it.
It's an indoor pool.
It becomes an indoor pool after the pool's in the ground.
Becomes an indoor pool when you put the greenhouse on
That's true.
it. Okay.
So what's the
Thank you.
difference? So you wanna charge her 10 grand to put a darn stamp on it?
Everybody else pays it. Maybe she has to
Well, is
shop
there anybody
around.
in
She
this
has to
town,
shop around for
Does
other
anybody else in this
engineers
town
or
have an
something.
in-ground pool that is a greenhouse over it? No. Very first time, right? Anybody else got an indoor pool? No.
Yes, up on the hill.
Is there one?
Yep.
What'd they go through?
They went through the same channels.
Pardon me?
They went through the same channels. They just had it done here a few years ago.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I'll take a look at the record. I think it's crazy that you guys are making her go through all this expense and
We're not making her do anything.
We want her to have this pool.
Yeah.
We want her to have this pool. We want to work with this woman, but she doesn't want to work with us.
No.
We ask her to get us something, it takes forever.
Well, I've got a whole, look, she's got a whole vinyl.
Well, yeah,
Files
over
of
a period-
stuff here. She
over a
writes to
period
you.
of time, over a period of time.
Well, we'll see where this is gonna end. I think we're gonna do is Article 78 against you guys, see what happens then, cost you more money. What do you think about that, Mike? It's a waste of time, really, but thanks for your time, Dave. So the answer is you're not gonna do anything.
well, again, as our town supervisor mentioned, Sam, it's not the board. These people that we have hired, it's their job to act. We haven't seen anything, and we've questioned it. I mean, we've gone the extra mile to hire Brian, and because of just out of ultra concern, if you will, to try and make sure this is being handled properly, because we were aware there's some personality issues going back and forth. And you've heard the report, and I think we're entitled to rely on the people that we've hired.
Plus we got a review back from the state that she turned me into. For whatever
Personal with you,
reason.
obviously, Mr. Fritz.
Was that?
It's obviously personal with you at this point.
Well, actually, it's out of, the board took this out of Rick Fritz's hands at the July meeting. Since the July meeting, it's been in Brian's hands. So I think it's moot as far as what's happened before. The other thing I'd mention, I don't know for sure, I'd have to go back and look at my records, but this July date from last year, I mean, the ZBA entertained an application for a variance, and I'm thinking that's the application I'm referring to. I don't recall specifically, but I think that's a separate application that was made, reviewed and approved by the town ZBA last year. So I think that's the July date you're referring to.
No,
Don,
September.
just for the record, it was the May meeting that we took it out of Rick Fritz's hands and we gave it to Mr.
Was
Butler.
it 2 months ago?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah. So Mr. Butler has been working on it through the month of May. I think around Memorial Day, he wrapped it up, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I will say with regard to the question about not requiring a design professional to certify this drawing is compliant with the state code. The project so far is very similar to 3 engineers defining parts to a car, but nobody has basically done a design for the entire car and how each of those parts fit into it. As an example, I've been in conversation with both the Solar Intuitions engineers, and they said that they only warrant their product and that they are not going to take responsibility for the concrete foundation. She had a mason who isn't a design professional at all design a footing and a foundation wall, the knee wall that this other innovations project, the enclosure sits upon, and they've never talked to each other. And then the people from Tarshan Pools, as she correctly said, have been waiting to deliver the pool. But there are a lot of questions unanswered yet regarding that pool system, and I've never received a single response from the applicant to any of those questions. So one of the things is that nobody is guaranteeing anybody else's work. And in fact, I believe the information that Mr. Armstrong had me send to you, Mr. Beardsley, included the fact that there was a requirement in the Solar Innovations documentation that was sent to the applicant that a design professional had to be on site to verify the construction that was built before the enclosure was in fact delivered, and that all requirements or adjustments to be made were the responsibility of the on-site design professional. They were not going to assume any responsibility out of Pennsylvania for anything that was being built upon the concrete foundation. Now, these questions that have come up and this lack of communication between those people is the very reason why I took it to the state for further clarification. And then I offered to have the applicant call the state individual that I talked to, Mr. Lopez, who is the executive director of the state education department, who basically confers all the requirements for licensing and when projects are required to be reviewed by a design professional. Now, I asked her in subsequent emails if she'd had an opportunity to contact him, and she refused to respond. I have tried every way I can to get the information going, and even my very last email, when she unilaterally attempted to fire me from a position that she had no authority to do, that I told her I would continue to work with her, but that was not her responsibility to determine whether or not I was going to continue working on this project on behalf of the town project.
Oh, I think we're at a standstill now. Lopez is the guy's name? I'll get it.
Lopez, yes.
Got his number.
Executive Director Lopez, I gave her the telephone number as well.
I've contacted him, and he does not concur with Brian's comments, nor does
Well,
the attorney for Solar Innovations, Tim Huber.
we'll get
And we
some
have,
update.
I do have in writing from Mr. Huber. And Mr. Perez was asked to respond in writing to the accusations that Mr. Butner has made. And he has declined to do that.
No,
Perhaps you
we
would
need
like
to
to
move
do
ahead.
that.
though. We need to move ahead. We're not going anywhere backwards. So what are we gonna do? What can we do to facilitate this procedure? Anything?
Well, first of all, I would say that if you're talking to an architect or an engineer that would require $10,000 to review this project, since most of the work has been done by the technical people, that you should find another architect to talk to. Because there are architects, I'm sure, that would do this consolidation of the various details for less money than that. But it's not for me to say one way or the other, or to suggest anybody that would do that, because I'm serving in the capacity of the town of Preble today as a certified code enforcement.
So you're saying that if we get a certified architect or any engineer that certifies the project, we'll go on ahead immediately? How long is it gonna take after we get that?
When I see the documents that have been provided by that certified individual, that he has been able to consolidate the various details from the 3 different parties I'm aware of, and that the applicant or a professional also answers the questions that I have given to the applicant regarding whether there's electricity going in the building, how they're gonna deal with the discharge of old pool water once it's chemicalized, that it cannot go into the septic system because that very well will destroy the bacterial balance and therefore ruin her septic system. A lot of these questions have to be answered by professionals. I'm not going to accept an answer from an applicant for things that are technical in nature.
This is a
These are very
closed,
reasonable questions.
this is a closed system, a relatively routine pool. And I did have a FOIL document from Groton, which was approved by Fritz. And there was no such horseplay related to
Mr. Fritz
that.
is out of the picture now. You're
Well-
dealing with me.
Well, if you want to go with a higher level, then you need to show some documentation of why you need that higher level. And I showed Mr. Beardsley a document, and you folks have had a long enough time to review that. If you're putting my case under higher levels of scrutiny, is it routine or is it a situation that I have been hand selected and looked at under greater scrutiny?
It wasn't any greater scrutiny than I would put under anybody else. Basically, I asked questions to be answered. They were not answered. I sought additional opinions from the state. I had a specific interpretation from Mr. Lopez himself. And then I came back and also realized that a code enforcement officer, when there are extenuous circumstances or the information is not readily provided, has the authority to require that a design professional become involved, because the applicant always answer these questions. And when I discovered that basically the Solar Innovations people were expecting a design professional to be on site to respond, and it's right in their instructions, then I
Would you
said,
like me
well,
to
then
read?
we have to,
This
concurrence.
is the comment from Mr. Huber, who is the attorney for Solar Innovations. He does not appreciate your comments. I cannot find quoted language in our installation manual just because Mr. Buckner says that in his report does not mean he is quoting our manual. I can only suggest that he be asked for a copy of the document that he is citing. And this is from Timothy Huber, legal counsel for
And
Solar
Mr.
Innovations.
Beardsley, you received a copy of that page.
Yes, he has. And he is
That's coming
responding,
right out of the installation manual.
and he is responding to this, which was your quote, which he says is nowhere in the documents. Even one of her principal subcontractors of the greenhouse enclosure, Solar Innovations, has stated in their installation instructions that the client's local design professional must be on site to oversee, review, approve shop drawings, and document on-site changes that may occur during construction, since the foundation and pool structure will be installed by separate contractors not under Solar Innovations control. That was your statement in an email. And that was Mr. Huber, who is the attorney for Solar Innovations. We're at a level of attorneys dealing with this. You asked for
Yes, I've spoken to him.
you asked for additional information related to filtration from Tarson Pool responded that they have never had to do that in a setting where the septic system was 60 feet from from the filtration and in a closed system. What will happen is that there may be some evaporation in the pool, but we're not talking draining into the septic, and we're the only incidents where you would need to require higher level filtration would be if the septic system were within 20 feet of the filtering. And it is not, it's more than 60. So that was the response that you've had.
He didn't give me any response of that nature.
Well, you can see it on the diagrams in the permit application that you've gotten. You can see that on the plot plan where the septic system is in relationship to that. Then you went on to ask for a drawing of the plumbing plan. Mr. Tarson it's Mr. Frere, but his mother was a Tarson. I've known the family for years. It was clear with me that he, in their history, have never had to do that for a pool. Say nothing of a pool of my scale. We're talking a 12 by 16 foot pool.
I'm just looking up some information.
And the other thing is the documentation related to the engineer, which at this point we would be talking is a professional engineer, is not required based on New York State licensing. And it's also in context with the Society for Engineers. It is not required. However, you are an architect. And there are different specifications under architecture, but I am not looking to hire an architect.
Well, then hire an engineer. I don't care. They're both licensed professionals in the state of New York. But I'm saying it's also the discretion of any code enforcement official when they believe that the information is not provided to the degree that they feel necessary to issue a permit. And it's not just you, it's anybody that would be there. And now you're also dealing with an enclosed structure, not just an open pool.
Why don't we do this? Don and I'll get together and we'll figure out how we're gonna handle this. Is that all right, Don?
That's fine, but I'm glad to communicate, Sam. But I'm not an expert in this area. I may be learning about more of it, but I guess one of the thoughts I had was when you get to a certain level, doesn't the building code require stamped plans approved?
The requirement is, should the structure be more than 1,500 square feet?
No.
That is not, you're saying that. That is not correct.
That was based
That is
upon
not
initial
correct.
information when they came out of World War II and they were allowing houses under 1,500 square feet
That
to
is
be
not
built
correct.
for the benefit of the returning GIs. It's been around forever. But basically, they're talking about residential structure.
Well, it's not a residence.
This is not a residential structure. This is an independent pool structure.
A project
No.
that is a residential
everything
project
relating
of
to
less
that
than 1,500
requirement-
square feet.
Everything relating to that
When I talk to
requirement-
them, and I don't mean to overcut you, however.
Well, you do it all the time.
When I talk to the people from the state, they referred me to a document that is a chart, although it's dated from 2012. October 30th of 2012. This is the document that they referred to me, which is available on their website. And they're standing by that, okay? They see no reason to change that. The current language, which I have shared with you on the New York State Education Department for professional engineer, there is no indication for stamped field drawings. There's no indication for that. My project has been designed by engineers that meet the qualifications to do the job.
They're not even any New York State engineers.
They don't have to be.
So they should be within 6 months if they are coming from out of state. We've
No.
already gone through this.
No, you need to review the documents, and if you do review them, you will see that you are not correct. I've been through this. Okay? 7209, special provisions. We've discussed
One of the
this.
points I hear though is that there's components to this project. And one of the advantages of, it seems to me, of having an architect or an engineer provide the overall plans is it would ensure that these components all work together as they should. And it sounds to me like there's 3 different contractors providing 3 different pieces of this project: the pool, concrete, and the cover.
That is correct.
And you've got electricity involved and so on. So, I mean,
It's not unusual. That happens all the time.
Yeah,
Projects are done, when you build a house, you have different people.
yeah, but when,
Different
Sam,
aspects.
when you build a house, you have stamped plans.
no.
You don't.
Well, there are ways that
Okay.
you can avoid that if you want to know the truth from someone that
Well, if you
has
put
a
an
bit of
addition on a house, you
experience.
don't have to have a stamp plan.
That's correct.
If it's over
That's
1,500
right.
square feet,
Well, if
That's
it's under 1,500, though.
no, I'm just talking about if the addition makes the total house, excluding garage, basement, et cetera, over 1,500 square feet, then even if it's a 300-foot rec room, by rights, you're supposed to have it.
By rights, but not by law.
That
No,
is,
by law, because it was
That's true.
tested in Rochester years ago when they had a fellow up there basically building McMansions about 1,200 square feet at a time.
there are 2 different standards here, 2 different sets of education law. One is for the architect, and what you are quoting is from the architect, and that has not been changed in some time. There's where the difference lies. And then there's the professional engineer. Okay, and based on the professional engineer, based on the type of structure that I have, an engineer is more appropriate in terms of the review because we're looking at safety and standards like that. It's than a design professional. Mine is a basic gabled structure.
Well, one of the problems I see there is the fact, and code enforcement officers as well as design professionals are taught in their basic instructions is basically when you have a more restrictive requirement, the more restrictive requirement shall apply. So if the
Okay.
engineers don't address that, then you go to the more restrictive one, which is the architectural standard.
If you're going to do that,
I was on
there's
the chairman of the planning board for 10 years. So anytime there was a question on any engineering things, we would, even if we didn't require a stamp drawing or the project didn't require it, we would hire engineers, right, and get town approval for bringing an engineer in it. And many times we had engineers we brought in, and many times the applicants come with stamp drawings from so then we knew as a planning board that everything was looked at correctly. And I
There
was
have been
doing that for
engineers-
10 years, and I don't ever remember
there
any
have been
situation
engineers
like
involved
this,
in the project,
especially
that-
with the complication of this building that you have of putting a structure over a pool, electricity and all this. If I was on a planning board chairman, I would require that. I would.
There have been engineers, Jim, involved in the project. So Innovations
Then
has a
have the
team of
engineers-
They also have a team of architects. Okay, one of the company founders.
Then have the
himself is
engineers
an
stamp the drawings and give the
It
appropriate
is-
information
the
to our
issue-
code enforcement officers.
The issue is that Brian is taking is that they are not required to be by New York state law licensed in New York State because their home base is in Pennsylvania. Okay, some of they do have some that are licensed in multiple states, but they do not have their person, from what my understanding with Mr. Huber is not licensed in New York State. But the documents that I've shown and shared show that they are not required to be licensed.
Well, I'm afraid we're talking about apples and oranges here because they're not required to be licensed in the state of New York to provide a product that was basically designed and fabricated out of state and sold as a component.
Well, I think
They
what you have to-
cannot assume the responsibility of the entire project if they're not licensed to practice in the state of New York. Now, if I may, here's the only site plan I've ever seen on any application. I don't see anywhere on here where there's a septic system. You're welcome to look at this, Diane, if you want. Please give that back
It
when you're
says,
done.
it does say septic right there. This is the septic. You have a poor copy, but this is the
I have a
septic.
poor copy. That's the only one, it's one you gave me.
Well, it's been duplicated multiple times, but that's where the septic is.
Well,
That's your
secondly,
septic
here I
system.
have a copy of the page, that is the third page of 55 that the people from Solar Innovations have. I'll read three different excerpts. I'm not taking it out of context. First of all, it says the installation of the system includes only the erection of the frame, glass, and accessories as provided by Solar Innovations. Absolutely no plumbing, electrical, foundation, or substrate work is included with any Solar Innovations job unless otherwise specified or reflected in the signed contract. There was none in this contract. Next, compliance with the law. Solar Innovations also assumes no responsibility or liability for opinions of the professional engineer retained to review and stamp the drawings. Thirdly, fall protection requirements. It is the responsibility of the customer to verify code requirements with the protection design professional and ensure compliance of all applicable codes. They aren't taking responsibility for any of that. They're basically putting it all back on either the applicant
Fall precautions
or the
is an
individual she
international
is
code.
presumably supposed to hire to put all the components together so it makes sense for Mr. Fritz or me in the case. And that part of the project, the process has never occurred. We're continuing to talk about the drivetrain, the engine, and the frame of the car, but we're not talking about the entire car being built and ready to roll off the site.
One has to believe that there's about 1,000 of these things in Pennsylvania that have been constructed, no complaints. Why is that necessary to have a New York State person come in and verify it?
They actually comply with international code, and they have internationally
New
done
York State
several
does not
projects.
concern itself with international
Well, the
code.
fall precautions code is an international code, which the structure does meet all those requirements. So the structure meets New York State code and international code.
Well, they said right there that they're required to, they're assuming the liability for opinions of the professional here retained to review and stamp the drawings.
Given the
Regarding this.
fact that there is no documentation from the state education department related to professional engineer, does the town want to pay for an engineer?
No, it's your
Because they
responsibility.
Because they assume that there's a liability there and that it needs to be done?
Well, let's do this. Don and I will communicate what we're gonna have to do next.
Okay?
All right?
Great.
We'll just get to you. No problem. Gotta do it post haste though. Summer's almost over. Pool's not in. All right? Nothing's gonna happen tonight anyways. All right? Let's go. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Don. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
Are there any other comments or questions from the public?
Jim,
Yes.
I got an email from Woodford Brothers.
Mhm.
We've gotten quotes and it's not the normal summer, we all know that. But the belfry, we talked about that a few months ago. Nobody we've talked to, I talked to Ed Nash about 2 weeks ago. And if we take the belfry off and put it on a trailer and take it to his shop, he'll rebuild it and then we can put it back up. And nobody wants to do the whole job soup to nuts other than Woodford. So as far as getting another couple of quotes done, is there a way of passing resolution, you know, that we search this out? It's kind of an outside the box type of a project. Because if you get it rebuilt and then somebody else drops it, putting it up, or, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of goings on.
Too many more working parts.
And the other catch is why Woodford contacted me. They're in October now. If you told them yes right now, and it's, we've seen the pictures of that belfry, and it may not be up there come February or March. I don't know.
Well,
Don,
what
are
you're
your
saying,
thoughts?
Jeff, is what, that you've not been able, try as you might, you are not able to comply with our procurement policy requirements, correct?
Correct. So, I mean, it's kind of specialty. You don't take your BMW to the Chevy garage to get it fixed. We need some specialty type. You know, somebody will climb up there, take the darn thing down, has the
So
fabrication
I think-
abilities to actually replace it.
I think if you just make a finding that you've been unable to comply with that and the special circumstances is laid out by Jeff, I think you're okay.
And that depends. This was 2 weeks ago. I was talking to him. I was waiting for tonight's meeting. I wanted to throw it out there that hopefully we could still get it done this season, because I'd hate like heck to have it come down or have a leak in the roof or whatever. I mean, we need to get this taken care of. And I just wanted to throw it at you, Don, and see if you had any.
No, I think, you know, it's, you've got money budgeted for it, correct,
Yes,
Jim?
we do. How much did Woodford Brothers quote?
$22,441 for the
Mhm.
belfry.
Mm-hmm.
And they also gave another price on just the table edge. That if you got, when you walk out tonight, if it's still light, the ledge, the horizontal ledge on the back of the building, sun beats on it all the time. When you're up in the attic, you actually look outside where that's starting to fall apart. They had another, and I don't have it, Jay got me this tonight, but they said they could do that while they're here with their lift much better than separate projects. They got to mobilize twice.
You can't remember how much it was?
I can't, I apologize. That filed, I
Yeah.
can't find it.
We just gotta be careful. We don't see the procurement policy applies when you're under the competitive bid numbers. Once you get over the competitive bid numbers, I mean, you'd have to put it out to bid. If you only got one bid, you could accept the one bid, but
You'd have to advertise it.
Yeah.
That's 25 or
I
30.
think it's 10 days. I think it's 10 days. I think, Jeff, but it's from publication.
Right.
I'd have to look, but it's.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, and it's up to the board what they want to do with this building, but I just don't want to see any damage come of it if something happens. So,
Yeah. Jeff has been looking for competitive bids, and has been unable to get 3.
Jay took the helm. He has
Competitive
been in the
bids.
last few meetings, but
Right.
he's called around different, everybody to talk to. It's either you, Rick, any other ideas? I'm not going up there. I'm going to tell you that right now. I gave that up 20 years ago. So,
Well, I'm all in favor of. We got the Woodford, we got the money in the account, and we did our best to get 3 competitive bids, and we couldn't do it.
Well, we could make a resolution to start on the initial part of this job, which you said was 22,000.
22,441.34.
Okay, so the other part that you don't have a price for, we could talk about that next month.
Well, here's the other catch, and got some work done at my mom's house right now, and supposedly in August, price of materials is going up 10 to 15%. So that's going to be another. Rick, have you heard that too?
Yes.
I was talking to Baker Miller a couple weeks ago, and they said
Well,
first week of
Well,
August.
if you lock in with Woodford Brothers tomorrow, with that, if they honor
Hopefully
that
they'll
price,
honor it.
if they honor that price
Talked in a
quote,
couple weeks, but
why don't we lock that in and get them started on it?
And then do we want 3 competitive bids on the other part?
We'll see what
See what it
they,
costs.
what they came in at. What they quoted.
On one.
It's a hard time getting material also now.
Mhm. If we come back to Woodford Brothers and say, you know, let's start with
The 22.
the 22 for, quote, and see what they say. They may say, well, we have to revise it, or they might say, okay, we'll put it on the schedule. So, let somebody make a resolution for this.
Make a resolution for Woodford to do the belfry for the bid of 22,000.
400.
41,
41, okay.
141.
22, 4, 4, 1, 34. I'll get it to you.
So we need a second on that resolution.
I'll
By the
second.
way, the ladies John was just pouring down that they, was it last week when it
All the
rained?
heavy rain. Down the chimney. Chimney's got to come down.
Okay, so Dave, you're seconding it?
Yep.
All in favor?
I-
Carried?
Do we want to make a motion for Jeff to get the 3 other quotes for the other? Just do that.
Well,
I mean,
He
if we
could
get a
get-
quote, we don't have to do it.
he could get 3 other quotes, but it's not gonna be really fair because Woodford Brothers will be set up for it. And they're probably going to do it cheaper than anyone else. And, I mean, then you ask 2 other guys to set up separately for that.
Well, we got buildings and ground. We can have a meeting here next week or
Mhm.
something. See,
Well-
maybe brainstorm on
Well,
it.
why don't we work on it?
Yeah.
For next month? Yeah. But let's get Woodford, I know we've been talking about this for probably 3 or 4 years about the belfry. And
The pictures are a year old. I looked at the pictures again on a computer, digitals. I'm surprised it's still up there now, to be honest with you. It's just,
well, we have money budgeted for the building. And so, we should use it to do the most needed projects, and this is one of them. So why don't, Jeff, so go ahead and,
It almost sounds like it qualifies as an emergency.
Oh,
I
safety
would-
issue.
yeah, I would say it's an emergency by now,
Which would mean what?
Means that you can, it's just like if you needed an emergency meeting, you can waive the 10-day requirement. So here it sounds like you've got a potential emergency, if it's in that bad a shape, that, you might be able to waive the competitive bid requirement. But I think, you've got authority to go ahead. If they get up there and they tell you that this thing's about to fall off, or this other has to be done to preserve this building or whatever, I think you may be able to move ahead at that point.
okay. All right, I think we can work with that.
I'll call them in the morning.
Okay. Could you call me after
Yep.
you get a response from Woodford?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're all set with a resolution for this. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, we need a motion to pay the general fund vouchers.
Make a motion to pay general fund vouchers abstracts number 7, numbers 125 to 143, totaling $4,641.32.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
Carried. Need a motion to pay the highway fund vouchers.
I make a motion to pay the highway fund vouchers abstract number 7, numbers 61 to 80, totaling $50,991.95.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Need a motion to adjourn.
Well, I got one thing.
Huh?
I got one thing I forgot.
Yeah. go ahead.
Baden Hank's been going down to the ball field. There's been fox running around down there. He pulls into his truck, fox comes up to the door of the truck. And then James said, you guys see him coming up through your driveway, right?
Well, Betty did, I didn't see it.
So I just throwing out, because, I don't know if the park's gonna start opening back up, but I know there's kids over there all the time. Just want to throw it out there and just keep your eyes up. You see them, let other people know and try to get it taken care of. I can see a kid getting bed or something,
Yeah. You said a fox?
I've
Is
seen 5 different, or 5 of them down there at one time, so.
5 different ones?
All, yeah, King City down there, seen 5 times, so.
There's a whole family down there.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
I mean, I went down twice, last Saturday morning and then 5:45 this morning. I didn't see anything, so.
Mhm.
Now, do you trap them or you gotta
You'd have to have
dog boarding?
professional traffic come in right now.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with them.
So, we'll just see if we start seeing them, you know.
Yeah, they could migrate out of the area
Yeah.
at some point. So, I will keep an eye on it,
Yep.
and if it becomes an issue, we could always take further action.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I
Carried.
How are you, Dan?
Okay. Trying to keep up.
That chair was different than your quick question.